Make sure it's on. Guys and dolls, Freedom Dad here. So, going to bring you a wee video, a couple of wee videos, and it's just a wee look on the internet of how. Oh, sorry, bit of bit of my bagel still left on my lip. Basically, how the rest of the world is looking at Great Britain right now. There's a wee. It was just 2 minutes. Just a wee 2 minute look through the internet, and just basically what kind of things are out there, what's going on, how do the rest of the world see Great Britain, you know what I mean? And it's nothing extreme or nothing far out there, but I think it's interesting. So I'm going to bring this first one to you, then I get a wee chat.
How empty everywhere is these days? Britain is quickly becoming a nation of nothing. A recent Cambridge University report finds the availability of parks, cinemas, train stations, public transport, GP practices, hospitals, mental health care, police stations, banks, cash machines, post offices, education facilities, theatres, swimming pools, museums, shopping centres, chemists, pubs and gyms have declined across almost all English areas since 2014. Under the Conservatives, funding for local government has been cut by over half since 2010. With such stringy finances, councils have had to be very frugal with their limited budget, selling off billions worth of public assets just to make ends meet, and raising council tax higher and higher to pay for worse and worse services. And even then, many councils are going into debt just providing basic functions. This is part of a wider economic policy pursued by the Conservatives over the past 14 years, one that was intended to bring down government debt. Cuts to education to the tune of £10 billion, taking 14% from the most deprived schools, £5,000 less per pupil. Youth services down by a third. Environment down 20%, housing down by a half and infrastructure down 55%, road repairs down 40%, 600 million slashed from yearly cultural spending.
So a lot of stuff we already know, a lot of stuff we're totally aware of, we're living it, and we've been living it for years. We are the ones in the working class, like you say, they're taking it from, they're causing problems for the councils that are most struggling. And it's just laying more and more grief and trauma for people that live in these areas. And it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And this is why I keep saying I can't see it going to 4 years for another general election. I think the country's going to be in such a bad state in 2 years. There's going to be no choice but another election. People will want the country fixed once and for all. But let's have another wee look at what else is out there.
An offence of publishing written material intending to stir up racial hatred.
The woman who sent this post was jailed for 15 months, and she is not the only one. The UK doesn't publish exact figures on how many people are arrested for things they say online, but anyone can send a Freedom of Information request. That's what the Times did. And they found that in 2017, the number of arrests rose to over 3,300. Or 9 people per day. But this figure is likely higher because the request for data was rejected by 13 out of 45 police forces.
The sentence is one of 2 years imprisonment.
20 months imprisonment.
But is this used to censor certain opinions?
It is a strength of our society that it is both diverse and inclusive.
This is free speech in Britain with hindsight.
I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online.
In the direct aftermath of the riots in 2024, Keir Starmer, now just a month in office, introduced rapid sentencing to act as a deterrent to further unrest.
Will face the full force of the law.
But the riots kept spreading, and it was widely recognized that false claims and online hate contributed to the unrest. The government published the now infamous "Think Before You Post" tweet, reminding people that content that incites violence or hatred can be illegal. The following day, Jordan Parler and Tyler Kay became the first to be convicted for things they said online, receiving sentences of 20 months and 38 months in prison. but many more would follow.
So there's awareness. There's awareness, you know, the amount of people going to prison for free speech in this country is the highest, I think, around the world. It's more than Russia. I don't know what the facts. It's hard to get figures out of China. Says everything done it. But yeah, we are a lot like we are looking at the kind of regimes that South Korea are under, and other communist political parties. And you know, I think going forward, like I say, you know, there will be another general election. But I also think other countries around the world, other leaders will not take this anymore, and Britain will suffer. The government will suffer, and they'll suffer in a way where they will fail the people. Other countries will make them suffer in a way that it shows us how bad they are. And I do believe with, you know, with Unison, with that and us and, you know, other friends around the world, all putting pressure on Labour, I do believe they are on really borrowed time, and they are really, really struggling already, and they're only 7 months in the power, 8 months in the power. So, you know, this is like, you know, you can see that they try to get involved with Ukraine. They've just been made to look absolute fools. You know, everything they do, they're getting condemned from people all around the world leaders. The only friends they have is like some Macron, you know what I mean? Justin Trudeau, and you can see exactly Biden, you know, so you can see exactly what company these guys are running, you know what I mean? They are the far left, they are Antifa, they're the wee group, you know what I mean, that nobody likes, and they're always left out of everything, and, you know, they don't have children, you know, and they just hate their parents. You know, this is the type of government we've got. They're like university students, you know what I mean, that have been used by other people and directed in the power for other purposes, and them purposes are coming clear, and we will stop them. It will be stopped. They won't get away with it, and we will never forget what they've done. Let's carry on.
Smuggling people into England was a high-cost, low-margin business. People attempted to cross the channel secretly in the backs of trucks arriving in Dover by ferry. Professional smugglers charged upwards of €9,000 per traveller, leaving most of their potential customer base to try their luck on unsuspecting vehicles instead. At the time, only around 12,000 people were detected crossing every year. That all changed after Brexit, when security checks tightened and border infrastructure improved, rendering many of these attempted clandestine crossings unsuccessful. But these increased border security measures inadvertently led to more illegal crossings overall, as smuggling networks turned to the small boats as an alternative. Since the pandemic, small boat crossings have skyrocketed, peaking in 2022 when over 45,000 people made their way across the channel illegally. It is now a popular and profitable business, as smugglers are able to charge a fraction of what they used to, mostly because they are overloading their boats with up to 60 passengers at a time on vessels designed for a maximum of 30, leading to an increased number of deaths by drowning every year. Successive prime ministers, and you know, we've had at least 4 since the crisis began, have pledged to crack down on the crossings, and all have seemingly failed.
The government has lost control of our borders, and we can see that with the number of crossings there are across the channel in small boats. We have to stop that. And I think the only way to stop that is to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
So once again, you can see, you know, awareness around the world. You can see how many views. You can see, you know, big channels. And, you know, it's everywhere. It's every corner of the world. I'm finding videos from YouTubers. And just stop that there, because, you know, you see what I'm saying about smashing the gangs. You know, that's all they've got. You know, we've got a problem with the people coming on the boat, but we're going to smash the gangs. No, you're not. There is no gangs. You're lying. You know there's no gangs. It's just guys getting together, begging, stealing, borrowing, whatever they're doing. They're buying an outboard motor, they're buying a dinghy, and they're getting a load of their mates. They're maybe charging a few quid a head, whatever, you know what I mean? But that's about it. It's just guys getting together and throwing money in together. There's no gangs. It's really, really simple. There's nothing hard about it, you know? But him being able to say that, and us letting him being able to say it, and all the other politicians like Farage not calling them out on it, lets you know everything you need to know. Because who are we? And we know there's no gangs, you know? Every criminal in Great Britain knows there's no gangs. You know, the dogs in the street, Beat Europe has a chat with her mates every time she goes out, says there's no gangs, you know, so we know there's no gangs, you know, smash the gangs. So you take that away, what's he got left to say? What has he got left to say? What are you going to do about the small boats, Mr. Prime Minister? I'm going to there's nothing he can say because he can't and he doesn't want to stop the boats. Simple as that. Let's move on.
Each government has focused mostly on stricter enforcement and more effective policing of the border, with the British government handing French border forces £150 million a year to prevent further crossings. But just like the tightened security on the ferries a decade ago, this is also having unintended consequences. The smugglers are hurrying launches to evade police and crowding boats far beyond their capacity to make up for earlier intercepted launches. As a result, 2024 has been the deadliest year for channel crossings on record, while harsher policing hasn't made a dent in the number of crossings overall. It's all a bit depressing, really, which is why most Brits prefer to just look the other way and pretend it isn't happening. But for a growing minority, illegal immigration has become the defining issue of our time.
A lot to take in that one. Like I say, guys, I've got I put the thingies up. You know what I mean? I'll see if I can dig out the links and put the links up, but you can see who they are. That's why I've left them wee bars at the bottom for you, but I will do my best, guys, to get the links out. You can see the rhetoric of the gangs is because people don't really know what else to say, because that's what the government are going with. It's people smugglers, it's smuggling gangs. You see the amount of money that we're giving the French to do absolutely nothing. £150 million a year, they do absolutely zero. You know what I mean? And, also, one of the points I want to make here is what he said, most of the people just don't want to look. They turn away, and that's changing. That's changing. People are starting to look now, and we're starting to notice a big rising in awareness in Great Britain. So there's a wave coming. There's a tidal wave coming, please believe me. Let's have a wee look around the rest of the world.
I have some headlines for you. The UK's cost of living crisis will cause thousands of premature deaths, study says. More than 1 million children in the UK sleep on floor or share a bed, study finds. UK mortgage payers making big changes to meet higher payments, according to a survey. Childcare costs soaring by over $700 a month as firms insist on return to office. Britain's pulled the plug on bath time to save money. UK recession risk grows as higher interest rates weigh in on firms. This is the Great Britain, the empire on which the sun never sets. But it's not so sunny anymore, is it? And the Great Britain is not so great anymore.
Not so great anymore. That's the common thread going through the world right now. And all sorts of countries, all sorts of people are all talking about Great Britain and how it's being destroyed from within. Not everybody touches on the real reasons, but everybody knows what the real reasons is. They do cover it and they talk about irregular immigration, but nobody really wants to deep dive it, because that's down to us Brits to sort out, But here's another interesting one from another part of the world.
Last year, almost 11,000 millionaires left the United Kingdom. Prior to that, thousands more left. And every single year, more rich people are deciding to leave the United Kingdom. That raises a question. What exactly is happening with the British economy that rich people don't want to stay? And it's a real serious problem, because when a rich person leaves the country, it's not just a random person who left. So if you have built a business that's worth millions of dollars and now you're leaving and taking that business, taking your employees, or perhaps you're simply taking the jobs and you will create these jobs in another country. Soon, sometime in the future, the government will not be able to collect enough taxes in order to keep all of these programs. On the other side, millions of people are flooding into the United Kingdom. They're coming to build a far better life. But when they're coming, they're not coming with their businesses. They're not coming with their capital. Maybe sometime in the future they will build that business, but not today. But when they do that and realize the exact same thing that millionaires today are realizing about the UK, they will also probably leave. The UK has one of the worst taxation systems in the world.
So guys, like I say, in a couple of years' time, this is when we're going to crumble. We are going to crumble. This country is going to crumble. I don't know why the government aren't addressing it. They're having a meeting today. They'll probably be talking about it. It'll be kept secret and they're all hiding it from us and they don't want us to know because they can't come out and say why it's happening, because they're spending so much money abroad. They're spending like what is it now? I think it's about 2.5 billion. I think we've worked out a month on people that's come into the country on all sorts of resources. 2 billion to 2.5 billion a month on just people that came into this country. You know, irregular immigration. That's how much it's costing us a month. Never mind how much we're sending Ukraine, to Syria, to, you know, and 111 million to mosques, and it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And then we've got 1 in 5 animals in our country being not being slaughtered with a stun gun. Unbelievable figures. 1 in 5 of our animals, right? This is the figures. The figures are absolutely remarkable, right? This does not make sense. The amount of figures that they're talking about. 2 seconds. Katie's just coming in. Katie, I'm just doing a wee video. Come on in, but you're okay. Yeah. So the figures that came out today, I'll see if I can throw them up. I'll see if I can find them. I'm not promising. I will try and throw them up. But what I want you to understand is, if we're slaughtering so many animals for halal, it's not a representation of the country. You understand? There's not 1 in 5 people in this country that are foreigners, so how comes there's 1 in 5 animals? It doesn't make any sense unless the figures aren't right. Why is there so many animals in this country being slaughtered without stun gun on this way under religious purposes, as the government are quite happily to admit? You know, why is there so many if there's only 20 to 30% in this country? Somebody's got to answer that question. Somebody needs to look into that, so they do. But I'm going to finish this off. I'm going to bring you one more, and I just want you to see exactly the damage and the change on the streets of England. And this is for people in Scotland and people in Northern Ireland. Pay close attention, because this is your future. And this is like, what really, compared to what's really going on, what I really could bring to you is what damage is really getting done. You know, the 50 cities and towns up and down the breadth of Great Britain that have got grooming gangs, 1,400 children in one area. And all these men are still here. They're still walking the streets, the same streets as their victims. Maybe this is why this next video is the way it is.
I'm in what was once a thriving Saturday night nightlife town in the middle of England. It is now a ghost town. It's 8 o'clock on a Saturday night in August, and this place used to be rammed as far as the eye could see with people, partiers. There was at least 15 bars and pubs, a few nightclubs, from the blue building that you can see in the background all the way down there. There is nobody out. There's a couple of older couples, a couple of families. But when I say to you, this used to be one of the places in the Midlands to go on a Saturday night out, I'm not exaggerating. Now, yes, times have changed. Prices are higher. A lot of the youngsters don't drink as much. But this used to be this busy on a Sunday night when nothing was open. All the high street is now is betting shops, as you can see there, charity shops. I think there's about 30 Turkish barbers.
So, got one more to bring you. Got one more to bring you after this. But this is the state of quite a lot of towns in England. You know, people aren't going out anymore for all sorts of reasons. Nobody can afford it. You know, streets are very dangerous. People are getting robbed. You know, people are getting robbed coming away from cash machines. People are getting their watches taken off them, right down to their trainers. You know, and it's a really dangerous place. Some parts of England now are really, really dangerous. We've seen with Her Hills where the police couldn't even go in and bring out a vulnerable child. So, you know, this is what people are watching around the world. This is what people are seeing. Okay? Now, the last clip I'm going to bring you is basically why. You know, why are these men going into hotels that are breaking into this country who are throwing away their ID, and we basically know quite a lot of them are criminals, quite a lot of them are terrorists, some really bad men. The government know that, we know that, you can just look at them, you know. People, readers will be like, whoa, you know. You only need to ask a few questions and you would know exactly, you know. And extremists, so many extremists coming in, and they're not coming here to integrate. They're not coming in here to fit in. They're not coming here to work. They're not coming here to do the jobs we don't want. Okay? They're coming here to get what they want because it is so easy, you know. And what's going to happen now is our vulnerable going to suffer. Our people with mental health and illnesses who rely on benefits to give them some sort of standard of life, you know. People are like, you know, some people call them dossers, you know, because they're in their house all day. You try staying in your house all day, see what it's like, day in, day out, day in, day out, never leaving, maybe going out to walk your dog and back in the house again, everything getting delivered, no having the mental capability to face anyone or anything or go anywhere. These are the people that are going to suffer. And is there any wonder why we've got people like that in this country? They look around them, they go online, they see the truth, they watch TV and they see lies. And they wonder what's going on. They think what's going to happen with my grandchildren. What's going to happen to my grandchildren's children? What happened to Great Britain? But, you know, this is one of the problems. This is a big problem. This is what opened the floodgates when he started shutting places like this.
Swelling number of suspects in remand still waiting for their day in court. For the last few years, prisons have been badly overcrowded with soaring rates of violence and drug use.
There was a basic failure, which is a failure to have enough prison places for the number of prisoners that were being sentenced to prison.
Then the riots happened, this time under a new government that also needed to look tough on crime. More than 1,000 people were arrested in their wake, with over 700 charged. The prison service is now at capacity, with the government forced to consider extreme measures like renting out prison space abroad in Estonia. It has already implemented Operation Early Dawn, slashing the sentence of some prisoners and releasing them ahead of time. They call this a temporary emergency measure, but you could also call it what it is: a colossal and embarrassing failure of the justice system.
So was it ever just like a regular prison, or was it only used for migrants?
No, the migrants was only a recent one. It started as a Borstal, then a young offenders, and then from that, sort of like juvenile, young kids.
David's prison was once known as the Dover Immigration Removal Centre, used to house male arrivals who were appealing for asylum or who had failed to seek it. It was closed in 2015, before the rising tide of irregular arrivals really began. In the years since then, the cost of housing a single asylum seeker has soared from £17,000 to £41,000 a year, largely because the government has been housing asylum seekers in private hotels. And let's be clear, these hotels are rarely based in wealthy areas. They are either adjacent to international airports or in poor areas where local council budgets are already spread thin.
Yeah. So there's the problem there. You know, at the end of the day, we must be one of the only countries in the world that, you know, put people that break into their country, that they know they're criminals, they know they're terrorists, they know they're extremists. You know, we've got all sorts of people come from all around the world with really bad intentions, and they're hiding the numbers, they're hiding the figures. You've got to drag everything out of them. We still don't have a clue how many's here. You know, we know their land is. They know they don't want to tell us because that would be it. You know, people would be up in uproar. Then we would understand exactly how much is being paid. But how we do find out is by how much money is being spent. How much money is being spent. How many animals in this country are being slaughtered without a stun gun. We can work things out from other things. You know, this is what we have to do. And, you know, I don't have the capability of doing that. I'll try, but, you know, it'll take smarter people than me to do that kind of thing. And, but there's definitely evidence out there. They give us an idea of what's going on in this country, you know, what's going on in England, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to happen. It's going to be everywhere, you know, it's not going to stop, you know, and once England really are under pressure, that's when they'll start moving people around the rest of Great Britain. And they will pick secluded areas, little villages with very little people in them that they know they're not going to put up much of a fight. This is the kind of tactics that they will use, My advice is pay attention to your schools, Pay attention to your schools, guys. Speak to your children, find out what's happening in your schools. That's how you find out what's happening. Because, I do believe there is something big going on, and they're sort of, the way they're getting on and hiding it and trying not to, give us any figures. It's really, really concerning. It's concerning because we're seeing the decline. We're seeing the result of this irregular immigration on the streets of Great Britain. We're seeing it through crime. We're seeing it through decay. We're seeing it through people not being able to enjoy themselves anymore because there's no money. There's no money for councils, I sat here for 4 years without a kitchen, with a huge hole that I couldn't even walk in. I couldn't even walk in my kitchen, talking about an 8 foot by 10 foot hole in the floor. By the time they got round to fixing it, that was how big it was. And nothing that it was something. It was like joists that were rotten, not floorboards, joists. So this is something that's been going on for years and years and years underneath it. And haven't even told me what it was. No information at all. And there is just no money. There's no care. There's no care for us. Everything will get done cheaply. I'm in a 3-bedroom house with my baby and my partner, and they give me a new kitchen. They took away 3 wall units, and left me 1 wall unit. I've got bare walls all around my kitchen. I've got 1 wall unit because there's no money. And at the same time, this council fly the Ukrainian flag above the council premises. You know what I mean? And like many, and how many billions have we sent there? And for what reason? We've got no army, we've got no weapons, we've got nothing. Everything's depleted. Britain has never been in a worse state, never been in a worse state. But yet they continually try and hide what is causing this, while it gets worse and worse and worse. That's the crime. The biggest crime here is what the government have done. The biggest crime here is the lies that the government have done to get into power. And the biggest crimes are what they're continuing to do to the people of England and the children of England, which is still going on today. It hasn't stopped. There's still children suffering because of bad men coming into this country, and we are being silenced. Eventually none of us will be able to talk about it. Eventually none of us will be able to complain. This is the direction the government will go. The more we resist, the more we will be silenced. And if it wasn't for all these YouTubers and the Americans, keep plodding away and letting people know what's going on in Britain, then I don't know where we'd be. But you know what? They can silence us all they want. The rest of the world will speak even louder for us. I'm Freedom Dad. God bless every single one of you.